All right. We should be live in just about a second. I believe that we are live, and it is good to see you all on this Friday. I am presenting today, this week in supervision, where I talk about some of the things that I have discussed in supervision with my groups. And let me tell you, this week was power packed because each one of the groups was just heavily engaged. It was just amazing. They make it so easy when it gets like this. But I didn't start off with this topic, kind of transitioned over to it because something got brought up in the Thursday group. And I said, you know what, this is what I'm going to share because what I'm seeing is that a lot of times with our supervisees, this process of reporting abuse, and this is what we're talking about today, is when should I report abuse? The process of abuse can be scary, can be intimidating. And there's a concern about what's the right thing to do or what might be the wrong thing to do. And so I've been seeing this trending. This has been trending not just this week, but prior to. And so I decided to spend with the rest of the groups focusing more on this subject, and we'll continue to do this. But today, this is what we want to talk about. So, have you ever been in a situation where you needed to make a report because you observed abuse? Okay. And so it's not just abuse, it's really abuse or neglect. Sometimes we bundle abuse and neglect into one, but they're actually separate. I'm not going to go into that today, but there is a separation, a dichotomy between what's considered abuse and neglect or neglect. Okay. And that's something that you will need to break down in your groups. What is the difference? But what I do want to talk about is a couple of scenarios here. Um, and we want to look at what would you do in this situation? What would be the right actions? And we want to, at the end of this live today, be able to determine and understand what we would need to do in an abuse or a situation where we see abuse or even neglect. So, when do we report? So let's just say there's a situation. Your supervisor comes up to you with this situation, or you experience it yourself somewhere in practice, right? And you have someone that you're working with, and you're suspecting by what they're telling you that they have been experiencing emotional abuse. Guess what? This person is 23 years old. Okay. And not only have they been experiencing emotional abuse according to their report, but and they've just been putting it into words. They weren't saying I'm being emotionally abused, but what they describe, represents emotional abuse. And not only that, you see that they are also it's suspicion that there is possibility, seems like that there may be some financial exploitation going on, but you're not quite sure about that. But it's just kind of funny. So what do you do in this situation? Do you, it's a 23-year-old, do you report this case? What would you do? This is what your client's telling you. Do you report this case? Well, a lot um, of concerning this answer has to do with the state of mind of that particular client. Okay. What is the state of mind of this client that you are talking to, that you're discussing this with? What is their intellectual abilities? What is their mental state? A lot of this, and we want to get into this, but just quickly before I forget, because I've been forgetting lately, we're going to get more into that. But I want to present to you, we have a free CEU coming up. That's one thing I want to talk about. Uh-oh. Let me stop that. Just wanted to share this screen. All right. We've got a free continuing education coming up. Now, I wanted to encourage you because the numbers have been increasing that this will be more of like a first come, first serve basis. We max out at 100. We had a lot of people that couldn't get in last time because I didn't realize Zoom, we never had this problem. So not only do you want to register early, but you want to be there early just to make sure you get in. We got an awesome topic, and we're going to be talking about social workers in sports. Did you know that we're in sports? Yes, we are. And Miss Ataska Winsett, she's an LMSW, and we are so pleased to have her. She will be presenting on that. We have a new man. We had an awesome supervisor training. We had a number of people come through, and it was just awesome attendance, and we a great time to train and to learn. But we have another one coming up on July the 28th and 29th. If you're interested in becoming independent in supervision, and if you have any questions or want to know more about that, let me know. And lastly, those of you all who are LICSWs and have not taken the DSM-5 TR, you haven't gotten your CEUs for that. We have that available for you, and we're about to hopefully within the next week or two release a new one. So then you'll have two options. But let's get back to our case, y'all. Let's get back to our case. So we have a situation with a person, someone that you're working with, and we're wanting to know, do I need to report this or not? This is a serious situation. So one of the things we're asking, is the client of legal age? Okay. Depending on your state, that may be different. But if you're in Alabama, you know what the legal age is. Are they of legal age? Is the question I want to be asking. And this is something that we used to always say when I worked in like the nursing homes and hospitals and Medicaid waiver, that kind of stuff. Question is, are they able to make a willful, tell me if you know where this is being quoted from, a willful, thought out decision, and are they aware of the consequences? This is a big deal because sometimes we let our emotions kind of take over the situation. Can this person, this 23-year-old, can they make a willful, thought out decision about what they want to do with their money? Okay. If there's emotional abuse, and that's what you suspect, if they're an adult, does that mean that I'm supposed to report that? Legally, I can't find anywhere in our ethics that that's my job. Okay. Same way if I'm counseling a husband or wife, and I think there's some emotional abuse going on, they are adults, and I might actually get sued for doing something like that. Okay. If there's one person coming in, it's like, oh, my wife is abusing me, or my husband is emotionally abusing me. Even sometimes if it's, we'll just leave it right there to keep it simplistic. Okay. So, if they're able to make a willful, thought out decision and aware of the potential consequences, then we want to be aware of that. If that's their decision, we have to let them make their decision. That's part of their rights. Okay. Anything that you believe, I can't read my what I'm saying on here, but uh one thing that will help in this situation that I can say is, if you're not 100% sure, and this is also a CY situation, cover yourself, whatever, cover yourself, cover your back situation. You want to make sure that maybe you have something, data on file that says that this person can make decisions. Maybe a mini mental status examination might help out, because if something goes a certain way or ends up in court, like, what is your proof that this person actually had the capacity or has the capacity to make their own decisions? Depending on where you are, there are certain built-in things that align with what would be considered a mini mental status examination and things like that. And so that is something that you want to keep in mind. When the client is competent in consenting, no report needs to be made. If the client is not competent or consenting, or is from maybe a vulnerable population or group, then make the report. Vulnerable population or group, if it's a child. Okay. Then, many times with seniors, we have that responsibility with seniors when they're experiencing abuse and neglect, that we do have to take on the role of making a report. But that's not in this situation. What you want to make sure you do as well is document every step of what you do. Document every step of what you do. And where do you report this information? Are you familiar with where you make a report if you see these this type of situation occurring? So there are places that we want to look at reporting. One of them is the Department of Human Resources, or if you're outside of Alabama, wherever the Child Protective Services, that would be a place that you would want to report. In certain other situations, you may want to report there and to law enforcement. Generally, a lot of times, if it's a situation including the law, the responsibility, I think, at least in Alabama, for DHR is to report to law enforcement. But sometimes you just want to do whatever you know that you need to do in that situation, or you may want to report to the DA, district attorney. Sometimes it's all of the three. Sometimes it's two of the three. Sometimes it's just one. Um, okay, and when should I make this report? Is it any time where it's too late or too soon? I don't see anything specific on that, but what I would say is make it immediately after there is a suspicion. And we're going to get more into that term suspicion. Why am I saying if there is a suspicion? Again, I told you, like, my pastor, he used to say, my former pastor said, anything that when you're talking to somebody, you need to know what's the Bible related to the Bible, whatever, what you believe, why you believe it, and where it's found. We're going to talk about that in a minute concerning this. Um, so here's another case. What if it's a child? A child tells me that someone was inappropriate. What's the next steps? What do you do? And so this is how I address it in supervision. I address it to the group just like this. What do you do? What's the process? Okay. What do you do in these situations? Okay. And so let's just say in this case, it is a 16-year-old girl. And let me hurry up. It's a 16-year-old girl and a 33-year-old friend of the family looked down her shirt. This is what she says. This is what she reported, that he looked down her shirt. Okay. So is that a situation where we want to make a whole report based on that information? I'm asking you, is that a situation where we want to make a whole report? Because we really don't know if that happened. We don't know if she could be confused. We don't know if it's true. So this is kind of the way that I cleverly ask the questions to the group for these kinds of questions in other groups as well. But I'm asking you. So the thing is that uh so if something happens, if something has been reported, if I'm not sure of the facts, you still report. You still report. It's not up to you to determine and make a case. You're not the lawyer or the judge to determine if this is true, if something's missing. Okay. So it doesn't matter. If you're not sure if there's abuse that has occurred in this situation, you still want to report. Now, I pulled this up kind of secondhand, but according to what I see, the Alabama Code 2614.3, I can't tell you for other states, states this: when a child is known or suspected, and it's interesting because this falls under infants and incompetence, but this is the code that I keep seeing that we're supposed to refer to. Um, when the child is known or suspected, let me hurry up, is suspected to be a victim of child abuse or neglect. What did I say right there? Did y'all catch that? When a child is known, so you know, or you suspect. So this is where we come up with the terminology. From what I can understand, suspicion, any reasonable suspicion of abuse would merit me making a report. Suspicion. So I don't have to have all the facts. I don't have to have all the facts, right? And so it says this: it shall be required to report orally. So this is how you can report orally, either by telephone or direct communication immediately, and shall be followed by a written report to a duly constituted authority. Okay. So what is suspicion? So, I mean, we have to ask these questions because somebody might be asking, what is suspicion? Well, suspicion is suspicion. You suspect, or you believe it is possible, or it could be possible, but you just don't know. It's alleged, allegedly. That's suspicion. And that's all that you need to make a report. I'm not able to cover everything, and I'm sure that there's pieces left out. I certainly didn't talk much about when there's neglect. I didn't talk about other abuse cases, or sometimes when there's someone who is incapacitated, incompetent, or who is a senior. But this is pretty much what you need to know. And this information kind of transfers many times into other situations, especially concerning the suspicion of abuse, especially concerning those who are in, like Jonathan in my group said, vulnerable parts of vulnerable groups or populations. We're going to leave it at this for today. We'll see y'all again next week. I hope this has been helpful. Spread the word. Y'all take care now. Bye bye.